Welcome to our 204th weekly webcast. Now, if this is the first time you're joining us, welcome. If you've been with us before, welcome back. And so the way this call works is this is an AMA, like you see on Reddit. Ask me anything. You can ask me business questions, career questions, investing questions, personal questions, anything you want. And my goal here is to humbly help you take your career or portfolio or company to the next level. So let's begin. Now, before I get to your questions, and please keep typing them there, what I want to do is I want to talk about two things. Number one, I want to talk about why the market pulled back materially late last week when the government announced the monthly unemployment results. Then what I want to do is I want to explain how to value a company using three different methodologies: price to earnings, price to revenue, and DCF. I'm calling this Valuation 101. It should be a lot of fun. Also, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain why governments are giving Ukraine a lot of money and how they value this using discounted cash flow. A lot of people will think, why are you giving Ukraine billions of dollars every single year when you could be giving tax breaks to consumers? But if we don't do anything about the Ukraine, this is a piece of the Berlin Wall, what will happen is the economic impact will be $10 trillion in the long run. I'll talk about that more in a couple minutes. But let me kick it off first with unemployment. So what the United States government does is every single week, they release jobless claims, meaning new people that have filed for unemployment. And then every single month, the United States government publishes the monthly jobless report. And investors pay very close attention to this, and it impacts all of our net worth. Investors pay very close attention to this because companies only report 4 times per year every 3 months. But the United States government provides a channel check on the economy on a monthly basis with the unemployment results. So last Friday, the market was expecting unemployment to come in at 3.7% or higher, but everybody was shocked because unemployment in the United States dropped to 3.5%. It was shocking. And this doesn't seem to make any sense because the government is raising interest rates aggressively in the United States as a way to try to slow the U.S. economy. And it's been working a little bit as well because housing prices are down 10% recently, and lumber prices are down 70% from the recent peaks. So what is going on? And what is the Federal Reserve looking for in terms of deciding when to stop raising interest rates? Well, the Federal Reserve, which is made up of 7 Fed governors as appointed by the president, the Federal Reserve wants to see, of course, prices coming down, which is not really happening. And more importantly, they want to see unemployment spike a lot. Right? It's an awful thing to say, but that's what the government is looking for. And so if we compare and contrast this inflation cycle to what we saw in the early 80s, the early 80s was much worse because inflation and interest rates were about 20%. And at that point, they rose interest rates so much that unemployment spiked to 10%, and that slowed the economy. So the bottom line is the Federal Reserve will not stop raising rates until I think unemployment goes to at least the mid to high single digits, and of course, prices come down. Until then, expect interest rates to continue to rise and the 30-year fixed mortgage to go well above 7% and probably close to 10%. Right now, it's around 7%, which is more than double this year. Okay, let me move on now to talk about Valuation 101. So there's several different ways to value companies. The first way I want to talk about is my favorite way, which is price to earnings, which is valuing a company based on how much it's going to make in the future. Before we go there, what I want to do is I want to tell you how to understand financial ratios in the easiest way possible. For the rest of your life, whenever you see a fraction, I want you to always think the denominator as being the number 1. So what does that mean with respect to PE? Well, what that means is, and what I'll do is I'll also show you how Coca-Cola is valued with a case study very, very soon, hence my Coke bottle there. So a PE ratio means for every $1 on denominator, how many times that $1 are investors willing to pay? So this is the denominator, which is 1. It's always 1 forever, remember that. And the numerator in this case is 10. So what this means is for every $1 in earnings, okay, investors are willing to pay 10 times that $1. Okay, $10 for each $1 in earnings. And so if a company is growing a lot faster, then what happens is investors will pay more than 10 times. They might pay 20 times. And so the faster a company is growing, the higher the price to earnings. So how do you value a company then? Like, how do you know what to value a company at? Well, the rule that people use is they use what's called a PEG ratio. Now, historically, the S&P 500 trades at about 15 times earnings, meaning for every $1 in earnings, investors are paying 15 times, or $15. Hi there. So what happens is the average company in the S&P, historically speaking, grows earnings at 15%. So 15 times earnings divided by 15% is number 1. Remember that. Okay, and that's a price earnings to growth ratio of 1. So if a company is growing at faster than 15% earnings, then it should trade at higher than 15 times earnings. So a company that's growing at, say, 20% earnings, okay, should trade at 20 times earnings. Okay, and this is not a perfect benchmark, but it makes it a lot easier to understand this stuff. So a company that's growing at only 10% should only trade at 10 times earnings. And this is called the price earnings to growth rate, okay, a PEG ratio. So let's look at an example now with Coca-Cola, all right? So how do investors value Coca-Cola? Well, we have to look at the PE of Coke and look at the earnings growth as well. And this will not be a perfect science, but I want to do this to impress upon you how easy it is to value companies if you use the price earnings to growth methodology. So if a company is growing at is valued at 10 times earnings, growth is usually 10%. So let's go to Coca-Cola together. And as always, we'll go to my favorite free website, which is finance.yahoo.com. Okay. And the ticker for Coke right here is KO. All right. So Coke right now is trading at 25 times earnings. So let's go and actually look at the financials of Coke here. So we can see right here, okay, this is last year and the year before. We can see right here that Coca-Cola's earnings per share are $2.25 in 2021. And in 2020, it was $1.79. Alexa, what's 2.25 divided by 1.79?
2.25 divided by 1.79 is approximately 1.257.
1.25. So that's about 25% growth. Now, in reality, people look at forwards earnings, not backwards earnings. But this explains it to you. And so a lot of hedge funds, what they'll do is if a company is trading at way above its earnings growth rate, they'll look to short that company, meaning make money if it goes down. Buying a company means going long. Shorting a company is the opposite of that. And so the rule that a lot of hedge funds use is if the PE is twice the earnings growth rate, then it's probably a short. For example, if a company is trading at 10 times earnings, but earnings are only growing at 5%, then it trades at twice the growth rate, and it might be a short. Okay, so we talked about price to earnings. Let's now move on to price to revenue. Price to revenue is really, really similar to price to earnings, except in the denominator, you've got revenue. And remember, the denominator is always 1. So if a company has a price to revenue rate of, say, 20 times, that means for every $1 in revenue it has on the denominator, investors are paying 20 times that $1 in revenue. And you do this if a company is not yet profitable. And so a lot of people ask me, hey, what is the going rate? Like, why should I value a company at 15 times revenue or 10 times revenue or 20 times revenue? How do I know? Well, it all depends on the growth rate of that company and the sector. And I see here, actually, my best friend, Scott Cochran. Hey, Scott, how are you, man? From Splunk. He just joined the call here. How are you, man? I wasn't expecting you. I hope you're feeling better, brother. So let me spin this for you, Scott. So Scott works at a company called Splunk. And Splunk went public back in the summer 2012. And so did 2 other amazing cloud software companies. One is ServiceNow, ticker NOW, and the other is Workday, founded by Anil Bousri, ticker WDAY. And at that point in time, those 3 companies that IPO'd in the summer 2012, Splunk, Workday, and ServiceNow, they all traded at between 15 and 20 times revenue because they didn't have earnings at that point in time. And so for every $1 in revenue those companies had, investors paid between 15 and 20 times. All depends on the sector. My favorite way to value companies, though, is to look at my PE multiple based on my earnings estimates in 5 or 10 years. And I remember when I used to work in the hedge fund market, I was long LinkedIn, ticker LNKD, before Microsoft bought it and destroyed it. That's right. And I was also long Amazon. And people would tell me, Chris, you're crazy to own those stocks. Those are widow makers. They both trade at well over 100 times earnings. And I would say, no. They trade at 3 times earnings. And they would say, what does that mean? Well, I would say they trade at 3 times my earnings estimates in 10 years. So this is how growth investors stomach the volatility of really expensive companies based on this year's earnings. They value them based on their earnings estimates in 5 or 10 years. And this is something I teach in a lot more detail in my MBA degree program. Go to harounmba.com for more details. Shameless plug. I hope you're enjoying my weekly infomercial here, Scott. Okay. All right, let's talk about the third way to value companies, and I'll talk about government policy and the Berlin Wall and why I have this here. The third way to value companies is DCF, discounted cash flow. And I don't like using DCF because there's a lot of independent variables when you value a company based on DCF. So DCF stands for discounted cash flow. And what that means is you value a company based on how much cash you think that company will make every single year into the future. Then you discount all that into today's terms. The reason I don't like using DCF is because between years 1 and 10, you can forecast that. But then 95% of the valuation, usually for DCF, is something called the terminal value, which is between years 11 and infinity. And there's so many independent variables, too, when you discount that future cash into today's terms, something called the weighted average cost of capital. And so garbage in, garbage out. If I tell you x plus 1 equals 3, what is x? It's 2, of course. If I tell you x plus 1 plus 3 plus pencil plus remote control from my air conditioner equals 1, what is x? We have no idea. Too many independent variables. But a lot of people like to use DCF, and I do teach it as well, but I'm not a fan. So what the heck am I doing having a piece of the Berlin Wall right here? And I got this at Checkpoint Charlie a couple of years ago. So the reason I have this is a lot of people don't understand, or they might question governments for giving money to Ukraine and other countries trying to fight communism. Well, if we don't do that, then the economic impact will be horrific for us longer term. So according to a lot of the top investment banks and economists, the economic impact, not to mention the awful loss of human life, but the economic impact from Russia invading Ukraine is going to be $2 trillion by 2023. We're all feeling it, right? The global economy would have had a nice soft landing in early 2022, but Putin screwed things up because now you got inflation because oil goes into basically every product you make, from glass to plastic, etc. So I think that within a decade, the economic impact of not fighting communism is going to be at least $10 trillion. So what does this have to do with discounted cash flow? Why am I mentioning this? Because if countries don't help Ukraine by giving them billions and billions of dollars every single month, then the long-term economic impact will be catastrophic to everybody. So hopefully that explains DCF in a nutshell, and target prices as well. And if you have any questions about that, please let me know. And thank you. And Scott, it's so great to see you on the call, bud. Wow. Love to see you, man. And by the way, Scott's son, Trevor, is the reason why my cryptocurrency course did really well. I hired Trevor to work with me. He's a really smart guy. He just started university. He's in, I think, Arizona State, right? Correct me if I'm wrong. Great guy, but he helped me out a lot. And he's helped me a lot with my NFT stuff as well, which I'll be teaching soon, and the metaverse stuff. Yeah, cool. Great to see you, Scott. Great to see you. Thank you. And Trevor, if you're there, I love you. Thank you. Good to see you. Okay. All right, let me move on now to your questions. Scott says I look great. Actually, the reason why I'm wearing these clothes is because Scott actually introduced me to this guy named Sam Malouf, who's a fellow Lebanese dude, in Burlingame on Burlingame Avenue. And I'm wearing these clothes. And Scott, I'm wearing this because of you. This is Sam Malouf. Not to be confused with malfouf, which is a good Mediterranean dish. Good to see you, brother. Thank you. Okay, let me get to your questions, guys. All right. First up, I've got Chetan, who published this, yesterday. He wrote, Professor Chris, in the options class you mentioned that while managing your hedge fund, you would only enter a position if the product of the average volume and total shares is massive. Can you please share some numbers or percentage, meaning percent of a position compared to the average volume or total shares? Yeah. So generally speaking, what I'll do is I'll answer this in a generic term to apply to everybody. Generally speaking, you only want to invest in very liquid stocks or options. And the way to think about it is I don't want anybody to buy a stock or any investment where you make up more than 10% of the average daily volume within 1 hour. Let me explain this with Coca-Cola, I guess, which I have open right here. Okay, so let's go here to KO, ticker KO. Okay, now with Coca-Cola, the average volume is 13 million shares times $55. So what you want to do is you want to take the average volume, okay, times the share price, and divide that by, let's say, 10. Don't buy more than that amount. Okay, otherwise you'll move a stock. And a lot of hedge funds that went belly up in 2008, they went belly up because they owned illiquid stocks and they destroyed them as they tried to sell them. Illiquid stocks own you in a down market rather than vice versa. So the same thing with options. And you never want to invest in a stock or any asset class where the difference between the bid and the ask spread is really wide. On Wall Street, they say you can drive a truck through that. So you want to make sure that the difference between the bid and the ask spread is very, very small. And with very liquid stocks like Coca-Cola, it's really tiny. So we see here that the bid and the ask spread is basically nothing, right? It's like a penny, probably less than that if you're rounding as well. Okay. And thank you for your interest in that option stuff. And Chetan is referring to the fourth semester of my MBA program, the fourth class in the fourth semester, FA44, Finance and Accounting FA44. I have a big option part to it as well. Yeah. Okay. And then you wrote, thank you so much for your Udemy courses. Thank you. Especially your MBA course. I think you're talking about a course I have called an entire MBA one course on Udemy. And you wrote, added a ton of value to my career. Lots of love from India. Would be lucky to meet you one day in person. Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I appreciate all of you. Thank you. And every morning when I get out of bed, I always thank God for these 10 things in this order. And that practicing gratitude puts you in a peak mental state. Try it. I thank God for Andrew, Matthew, Dylan. These are my kids, and blue is the theme today. Scott, I know you're thinking I have too much blue on today. I know. I think you're right. So I thank God for Andrew, Matthew, Dylan, Christine, my wife, my mom, my dad, my brother, Jamie, my sisters, Katie and Elizabeth, and all of you, my students. Thank you. Okay. All right. Next up, I've got Mina, who's from Greece. How are you, Mina? Mina graduated from my Platinum MBA program last year. Great to see you. Mina wrote, hi, Chris and global family. I hope all is well. Likewise. I come again with great news. Awesome. I'm finally in the process of buying my first property. Any advice on that? Nicely done. Nicely done. Awesome. Awesome. So I'm not sure if you're still in Greece or in Brussels where you were before, but you want to look at the tax implications to see if you can get any sort of write-off on the interest of your mortgage. Usually it's only the United States where you can do that, but I'd look into that. And I would talk to your accountant first before purchasing anything to see if you can get any sort of tax benefit. Put down as much as you can, of course. And there's certain tax write-offs too. If you put down a certain amount, you get certain tax write-offs in certain countries. So please talk to your accountant first. And I think everybody should have an accountant as well. Please don't do your own taxes. Anybody doing your own taxes is like doing medical procedures on yourself. You got to hire a professional because the tax code changes all the time. Yeah. Great to see you and congratulations. All right, move on to Kevin, who's in my MBA program as well. Kevin wrote, good morning from Lakeland, Florida. I hope you're doing well. Thoughts and prayers with you and everybody in Florida with respect to the recent awful weather events. Yeah. Moving on to Zorlina, who is from France but lives in Ontario, Canada. And she has a crepe company she's trying to sell to a private equity firm. She's in my silver program, silver MBA. So Zorlina wrote, good morning, Chris. I'm looking forward to the Thursday webcast. You make my day. Thank you. You make my day. And I hope your cats are doing well. Mimi and Mumu, right? Yeah. And congratulations on getting married recently in Nova Scotia. Yeah. And then you wrote, my question today, are you buying stock these days? Yeah. I'm always buying stocks in companies that are oversold. So whenever you analyze companies, and this is something I teach in my MBA degree program, and what you can do, Zorlina, is you can go directly to EMS 44, okay? And what I want you to do is I want you to complete this entire spreadsheet, which analyzes the fundamentals, valuations, and technicals for companies, okay? And then what's created for you is a one-page executive summary. So you look at fundamentals first, valuation second, and a distant third is technical analysis. So if I have a company that I love the fundamentals and valuation for, and I notice that it's materially oversold, meaning the RSI is 20, then I'll start to buy. Now, you can't time markets because markets go up and down due to black swan or rare events or geopolitical stuff you can't control. But you can always look to buy broken stocks, not broken companies. A broken stock means a company you love that is oversold and has an RSI of 20 or so. In terms of when to back up the truck and buy growth stocks or more risky asset classes, I recommend doing that when the VIX spikes to 70 or 80. We're not there yet. If anybody wants me to talk about the VIX in more detail, I'm happy to do so. I've talked about it in previous webcasts. What I do recommend everybody do, at least people in the United States, is I recommend that you all go to treasurydirect.gov and you purchase what I'm about to show you, okay? And I put my reputation on the line. This is the best investment you can ever make. And you might only be able to do it if you're located in the United States. So you go to treasurydirect.gov, and this is buying bonds directly from the United States government. And you probably haven't heard of it because you can only buy it direct from the government. You can't resell it to anybody else. The big investment banks don't sell this as well, so there's no marketing departments marketing this stuff. But what you can do is you can invest up to $10,000 and you only pay federal tax and you get 9.62% guaranteed, okay? And the very last company, so to speak, that would go belly up on the planet is the United States government. It is what it is. And even if, and this is basically inflation protected. So if inflation goes up materially, this will go up as well. Now, you can only buy $10,000 worth. And if you sell it in less than a year, there are penalties as well. And this rate changes every 6 months, every November 1st and every May 1st. Okay. So on November 1st, this is going to come down a bit. The reason it is because the way they calculate this bond here is they calculate it and give you the valuation based on 6 months trailing inflation data, which has come down a little bit. It's a little bit of an anomaly. But I think this is the best investment you can possibly make. Now, if you want to take money out of your account every single paycheck to put in ETFs, which I humbly recommend doing, and if you don't have time to actively manage your portfolio, meaning you don't have time to do investment research, then I recommend buying VOO, V-O-O. And this is what I do. So the VOO is an ETF, an exchange-traded fund, that represents the S&P 500. And I think it's a great investment for the long term. Now, the S&P 500 has a historical return of 10.5% every year. 10.5% it's up on average. Obviously, this year it's down. And VOO is an ETF by Vanguard, which represents the 500 stocks in the S&P 500. The reason I mention this one and not others is because the fees here are very low at only 0.03. What does that mean? Well, that means if you invest in the S&P 500 by buying VOO, you're going to pay only 3 pennies per $100 you put in every year. And this represents, again, the 500 stocks that make up the U.S. markets. Some of my students ask me about the SPY. Should I buy the SPY instead of the VOO? It's just a different ETF. And I say, don't do it. Because the fees here on this ETF, which is identical to VOO, is 9 pennies per $100 per year that you invest. Now, I always believe in having money taken directly out of your account, your paycheck, every 2 weeks, if you can do it. I know times are tough right now. And Warren Buffett always says, you want to spend what is left after saving and not vice versa. So if all you did over the next 20 years is in your 401k or your retirement savings account, you invested $20,000 every single year in that ETF that goes up 10.5% on average per year, then what you would get over 20 years, in 20 years, you'd have over $1 million. If your spouse did it as well, then you'd have over $2 million. And let's say you get married today and in 2 years you have a kid. and you want to pay for college for that kid. You want to save. Well, you can save for your kids as well in something called an educational savings account or a 529. And if you're overseas, do a search on what is the 529 equivalent in your country. And so in the United States, you can invest between $15,000 and $16,000 per year in your kid's educational savings account. So if all you did, let's say you get married today, and in 2 years you have a kid, and 18 years later you want your kid to go to college. If all you did for 18 years was you put $15,000 to $16,000 in the VU, right, and it goes up 10.5% per year on average, then in 18 years that would be worth between $700,000 and $800,000. So if all you did was you saved for yourself and your spouse using your retirement savings account, max out every year, please, and for one kid, then in 20 years, you would have $2.7 to $2.8 million. Yeah. All right. All right, next up, Duan wrote, hey, Duan. Duan wrote, and first time seeing the call, and I hope you join us again. The question is, I'm 21 years old, and I'm graduating in December with a management accounting degree. Congratulations. My question is, what should I do to optimize and improve my LinkedIn profile? Should I post regularly? Thanks. Yeah. I recommend, well, in my MBA program, I teach you how to create a LinkedIn profile on steroids. But what I recommend that you do is I recommend that you write an article on whatever you're passionate about, whatever industry you're passionate about, every single week, okay, on LinkedIn. And I did this, and I did this over 2 years. So that's 104 weeks. And what I did was I wrote an article every week for 104 weeks. And then what I did was I took all those articles and I put it into this book. And I'm going to show you how to get a template for this book for free. Anybody can write a book that's 6 inches by 9 inches. I'll show you how in a second. But I put it into this book. And the way I sorted the chapters was the articles that got the most likes or views went first in the book. It's like a literary Darwinism, so to speak. And so I recommend that you do that as well. Write about whatever you're most passionate about. And you might think, well, I don't have much experience. What do I do? How do I become a thought leader? I'm young. Well, don't let age get in the way. A thought leader, it's like the Rodin sculpture, I think, therefore I am. If you think of yourself like a thought leader and you opine, give your opinion on stuff, then what happens is eventually the media comes to you and you get free publicity. It can be lonely, though. And don't worry if you don't get any likes. You should say, I don't give a damn what anybody thinks, because your competition will give up after a couple of articles. So after you create a bunch of articles, you can repurpose that into a book. And I'm going to give you my template right now. So, and if you think what I'm about to tell you is too much work, let me say this first. If you think what I'm about to tell you is too much work, then ask yourself, how badly do you want that job or that customer? So what you can do is you can go to my website to download the book template. Go to harounmba.com/all lowercase write book. Okay, that's all one word. And then you click here, and if you know how to use Microsoft Word in a browser, you can publish a book as well. So this will download, this is me buying time, this will download the book template directly from Dropbox. And on the very first page of this download are instructions. I don't ask for your email or anything. Here it is here. So one page of instructions here, and then the template. And this one page of instructions will tell you how to publish directly on Amazon Kindle. It's Kindle Direct Publishing, as well as Amazon Print, as well as ACX, which is audible.com. And then if you're going to get the cover done, please pay this person here $5. She's great. She has all my covers, UltraCon 22. She's from Bangladesh. And you just fill this all in, okay? And then you just right-click here to repaginate, that's a word, apparently, the table of contents. Yeah. And if anybody has questions about that, please let me know. I've had tons of my students that have taken their careers to the next level and gotten the job of their dreams and customers of their dreams, etc., by writing a book. Okay. And it's free and it's fun. Okay, next up, Zoralina, whose name is Caroline, wrote, I listened to last week's webcast later about the smoothie recipe. Lots of interesting ingredients, berry, garlic, etc. Every Sunday what I do, and I've been doing this for 15 years or so, I order a bunch of organic food from Whole Foods. And what I do is I juice it. And there's kale in this and a bunch of other greatest hits antioxidants. I also drink, as I mentioned in the menu before, an entire thing of vodka every day. Yeah. And then I have my bulletproof coffee. Yeah. And then you wrote here, I do put in garlic. Yeah, I do. Yeah, I know it's crazy, but it's healthy. And if you're starting to get sick, take garlic cloves as well. It does help to offset getting sick, sort of. And you wrote, it can't be as good as dosa. You're right. Dosa is the best food ever. And anybody goes to an Indian restaurant, please order dosa. Don't get the chicken tandoori and all the other good stuff. Get dosa. It's the best. Okay. All right, moving on to Mina from Greece. Mina wrote, Chris, the government announced a special loan for people buying their first home in my home country. It covers 90%, oh wow, of the net value instead of 80% of normalized banks, and has a 1% interest place instead of 4%. Oh my God, that's a sweetheart of a deal. I'd be all over that. Because the 30-year fixed on mortgages is now about 7%. I think it's going to 10% soon. I would be all over that. Talk to your accountant first, though. Yeah. All right, next up, we got Alex P. Keaton. Alex, how are you, man? Alex wrote, Chris, I'm curious, as you've been around the block, which is a euphemism for I'm old. I am. It's okay. It's okay, though. The older I get, the better I was. Then you wrote, I'd like to know if you've ever encountered the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints missionaries in your travels or in the Bay Areas. Yeah, the Mormon, religion, yeah. I have. When I was in Montreal, I encountered people there, friends of mine I went to school with. And then when I worked at Goldman Sachs, my best friend at Goldman's a guy named Brad Whittison, great guy. And so he told me a lot about the Mormon Church as well. And I've gone to Utah a bunch of times for the annual Novell Brain Share Conference in Salt Lake City. Yeah, and thank you for bringing that up. And I do love the commercials too. They're great, very heartwarming. And by the way, it's interesting because a lot of people that are Mormon go to BYU. And what happens is in the Mormon Church, before you go to university, you travel for 2 years as a missionary. And what happens is BYU has an amazing football team for many reasons. But one of the reasons is because their students sometimes are 2 years more mature, meaning they've grown and developed a bit more. Yeah, I'm a big fan. Thank you. God bless you. Okay, next up, Mina wrote, seeing inflation as at 10%, won't the inflation eat up the interest in the long term? To me, it sounds like a safe investment. Yeah. So with respect to the government in Greece giving you only a loan for a mortgage at 1%, I'd be all over it. Of course, you have to look at the relative valuation of the place you're buying. And when it comes to real estate, you always want to buy the crappiest home in the nicest neighborhood instead of vice versa. Okay, and Scott, thanks again for being here today. And Scott signed up for my 5 free courses and more. It's my 99-cent subscription. Thank you. Appreciate that. And so when you join my channel, you can do that. Or you can, and Scott, you don't have to do what I'm about to say, but you can also pay $19.99 to get all my courses. Okay, and it's a subscription, or $99 on my YouTube channel to join my MBA program on a monthly basis. Yeah. And thank you, Scott. Good to see you. You didn't have to do that. Thanks. And I'll pay for dinner next time we go out. Actually, no, I'm going to go like this. Whenever I go to dinner with Scott and the bill comes, right, in Burlingame, I always go like this. I have alligator hands. I can't find my wallet. Right, Scott? And T-Rex can't do push-ups either. No, dinner's on me, of course. At In-N-Out, yeah. So Scott wrote here, in the United States, is the United States in a recession? If so, how long do you think it will last? Yeah, it depends what data you look at. Technically, a recession is defined as 2 consecutive quarters of year-over-year economic contraction, meaning GDP, which is the revenue for a country, going down two quarters in a row. So I'm not sure. I don't know. That being said, the year-over-year comparisons are not that difficult, right? It's all relative. For example, in the United Kingdom in Q2 in 2020, GDP growth was negative 20%. And that was the worst year-over-year contraction for the United Kingdom ever, even worse than when the Germans were bombing London. Okay, but that made the next year look really easy from a year-over-year comparison perspective. Yeah, but I think things are going to get worse, man. Yeah, at least until unemployment is in the mid to high single digits. Yeah, we live in interesting times. Moving on to Charles, who's in my Platinum Pro. Hey, Charles, how are you, man? Charles wrote, hey, Prof, in view of the big strategic differences between for-profit companies and institutions and non-for-profit organizations, and given my professional background, please may I know if I will have the privilege of being taught these courses among others, meaning public leadership and management, non-profit, that's right. I think you sent an email about this as well. Yeah, we cover all those topics. However, I don't go into too much detail on how to make a 501c charity in my MBA program. But in the third semester, and Scott, this is going to mess up my beautiful hair that Dee Dee does. But in the third semester of my MBA program, in E3 1 through E3 5, that's entrepreneurship semester 3, class 1 through 5. In the third semester, we have a venture capital boot camp where I have you write a very detailed business case write-up. Okay, and failing to plan is planning to fail. If you don't write a business model first, the chances of success are a lot lower. And what you can do during that, this part of the program is you can do a business plan for a charity. Yeah, and I'm happy to humbly help you with that as well. God bless you for doing that. Yeah. Okay, and then you wrote, it's always a blessing to be in your class, my salute, Prof. Thank you. It's good to see you. And you wrote, also, do you cover financial management? I do. Communications, I do. Leadership, I do as well. Yeah, great to see you. Moving on to Shabanth, who wrote, my friend is confused between human resources, marketing, and the finance field. And he doesn't know what field he wants to make a career. How should he choose a major? Any advice? Yeah. So I think in my MBA program, what I do is I feel like I'm a waiter. Okay. And this is where I proposed to my wife, Christine. She said yes. Yeah. But I feel like I'm a waiter. And I'm a waiter because I serve you, the student, the customer. And a waiter exposes you to all types of meals, and you only pick one or two, right? One or two items. I do that in my MBA program as well. I expose you to all types of careers, and I let you decide. And the way to decide what you want to do career-wise or what your friend wants to do career-wise, there's a couple ways. Number one, if I told you that for the next 30 days you can't travel and you can't go to work and you can't do anything on vacation, whatever, what would you do with your time? Whatever that is, that's your career. And I don't care what anybody says. Ignore everybody else and just do what you love doing. Because if you chase money, you'll lose your dreams and your money. But if you chase your dreams and you fail a bunch of times, you don't give a damn about what people think of you if you fail, then something beautiful happens. Your dreams come true and the money follows accidentally. It always does. It always does. Everybody that's incredibly successful has failed more times than you and I have combined. So just follow your heart and everything else works out well. I promise you. And if you're not sure what career would make sense to you, then I want you to set up a ton of networking meetings with people that are similar to you that work in different industries. And I teach you how to do that in my MBA program. And I did that when I was younger too, in my early 20s. I didn't know what I wanted to do when I grew up. I still don't. Well, no, I'm happy now teaching. And so I set up informational meetings with lawyers. So I thought, hey man, maybe I'll go to law school. And I was so turned off. After those meetings, I thought to myself, are you a jerk or do they, as a lawyer, or do they teach you that in law school? Are you a jerk first? Or do they teach you that sort of thing? But I'm glad I did those informational meetings, and I recommend you do the same as well. Yeah. Okay. And as Confucius said, if you have an occupation you love, you'll never work for a day for the rest of your life. All right, next up we have Manas from India, who's a good buddy of mine. Manas wrote, good morning, my mentor. Hope all is well. Likewise. Actually, the background looks dope with the bow and arrow. I'll definitely pin you in a bow and arrow competition. Just joking. No, thank you. Thank you. I'm not very good at that, although I am very good at Wii bow and arrow. I play that with my kid. I'm good at that, yeah. But that's the only thing I'm good at. And my dad used to tell me growing up, he would say, and he always had issues with teachers because the teachers wanted to fail me a lot. They thought I had learning disability. And he would say, Chris, those who can't do, teach. Right? And I don't know if I agree with that. They say those who can't do, teach, which is me. And those who can't teach gym class. And I suck at sports. So you're all out of luck. Yeah. And I love teachers, by the way. Yeah. But I love my dad more for standing up for me. Okay. Next up, Edmund wrote, Chris, Carl Icahn often says that many companies are overstating earnings is there any truth to this? Yeah, so Carl Icahn, for those who are not familiar, he works in the private equity market. And what he does is he breaks up companies, makes them better, and then relists them on the market. So for example, what he did with eBay years ago is he bought a 30% stake in the company, muscled his way on the board, and he fired a bunch of executives, including John Donahoe, great guy. He used to work at Bain Consulting. I met him a number of times. Johnny's a big guy. And he forced the company to break up into two parts: eBay, the marketplace business, and PayPal. And that unlocked a lot of shareholder value. In terms of companies overstating earnings, I mean, a lot do. We saw what happened with Bed Bath & Beyond, which is tragic. But I only like to invest in companies that have, high quality auditors that will kind of bless the financials, like Deloitte, Ernst & Young, etc. Yeah, but it does happen a lot. Yeah. And in my MBA program, I teach you how to read financial statements like a good book, and to see if there are issues. So for example, if deferred revenue decreases a lot in a given quarter, it means they drain the pipeline, regardless of how earnings and revenue was in the quarter. That's why sometimes you'll see a company have amazing earnings and revenue and the stock goes down, because they drain the pipeline. And there's many other things I look at. For more details on this, if you don't want to take my program, you can read a book called Financial Shenanigans by Howard Shillett. And I used to be a client of his in the hedge fund industry years ago. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Manas wrote, Zoom is trading at 72. Can you explain, if please, whether it's overvalued or undervalued? And does Zoom have a future in Web 3.0 and Metaverse? Dude, I'm telling you, if Zoom renamed themselves Zoom Meta or Zoom Web 3.0, the stock would probably double. Yeah. I think there's an incredible opportunity for Zoom longer term to be able to re-architect its core infrastructure so that it's meta-based. The problem with Meta, though, in virtual reality, is it's just not realistic enough yet. And so when I use VR goggles, everything looks real except for faces. Same thing when you play FIFA or NBA 2K, etc., MLB The Show, anything that's EA Sports. It's just the faces aren't perfect yet. But if I think that if Zoom were be able to do that and use VR, then I think its market cap would double overnight. In terms of the valuation, I can't just look at it based on what I see for earnings this year or next year on Yahoo Finance. I would have to create a financial model and look out 5 or 10 years. I always value companies based on my earnings estimates in 5 or 10 years. The longer the view, the wiser the intention. So I recommend that you create a financial model for Zoom looking at least 5 or 10 years, and also understand the total addressable market. What is the size of that market? And what % share do you think Zoom can get longer term? And by doing that, it's a great sanity check, kind of like that the Senate is a good sober second look. And sometimes I've found that when I forecast revenue for companies I love, I get carried away because my revenue in 5 or 10 years is bigger than the entire market. So make sure you understand what % of the total addressable market you think Zoom can have in the long run. Yeah. But I always ask myself this question too whenever I invest. In 5 years, will this company be more relevant or less relevant than it is today? And that will help you to avoid getting stuck in value traps. It'll help you to avoid buying companies that were cheap historically, like Yahoo or Research in Motion. They're cheap for a reason. Yeah. Okay. All right, next up, Norm McDonald from Canada. How are you? Norm wrote, hi, Chris. Do you celebrate the Canadian Thanksgiving or the American Thanksgiving or both? Thanks. Yeah. So, and for those who are not familiar, Canadian Thanksgiving is like 6 weeks earlier than U.S. Thanksgiving because the harvest was always earlier in Canada. It gets colder there, eh? I celebrate American only because I'm down here. I miss my wife. She's actually up in Toronto right now for Canadian Thanksgiving. But hey, happy Thanksgiving to you. Yeah. But Americans are smart about it too because they make Thanksgiving on a Thursday, which means that no one goes to work on Friday, right? In Canada, I think it's on a Monday. Yeah. But I love both countries. Hey, Scott. Good to see you, buddy. Okay. Next up, Manas wrote, Mark Zuckerberg launched the Oculus Pro 2 for $1,500. Is it worth it? I believe it's way overpriced. But do you remember how much the first phone cost? And maybe I'd like to know your thoughts. Yeah, absolutely. So what happened was Zuckerberg, kind of like Microsoft with HoloLens, he realized, and give me a second here, I'm going to grab my device. He realized that a lot of big companies are using VR and AR. And so you can always charge higher for a big company. And that's exactly what Microsoft did with HoloLens. HoloLens is not really a consumer device. It's more of an enterprise device. HoloLens costs over $3,000. The same thing with Google's Magic Leap. And so $1,500 for Oculus is not, it's not a crazy price. I think it's too expensive for consumers, but I think it's probably in the sweet spot for enterprise. Yeah. And this is not done as well as people think. I mean, they've only sold 15 million of these things globally, which is nothing compared to the deployment or market share of cell phones, where there's billions of smartphones out there. Yeah. Let me hide my messy desk now. Okay. And to see what my MBA program might look like in the metaverse, and I'm adding case studies, metaverse-based case studies soon to my MBA program. To get a taste of that, you can always go to mbametaverse.com. Yeah. Okay. And then Manas wrote, Saudi Arabia is obviously on the side of Russia. Will the United States take big steps to fight the Saudi regime? I don't think so. I don't think so. And it's sad because OPEC cut production recently to further drive up the price of oil. And a lot of people thought this meant that, OPEC is supporting Russia. Indirectly, it might seem that way. But I need to do more research to really understand all OPEC nations and what their financial issues are. If I'm an OPEC nation and my constituents or citizens are starved, raising oil prices might help my country. Yeah. I don't think it's really Saudi siding with Russia. But one thing I will say, in hindsight's 2020, I'm sure the Biden administration and the Trump administration wish that they didn't talk about pulling troops out of Afghanistan. Because having troops in Afghanistan for decades has kind of kept the Soviet Union, or Russia, I should say, in check. Yeah. So in hindsight, I think they know it was a mistake. Yeah. All right. Great to see you too, Scott. Great to see you. And thank you. You said you look great. It's because of you, man. Because of Sam Malouf. You introduced me. Thank you. Okay. Next up, I've got Mike Aziz, who said, "Hi, Mr. Haroun. Call me Chris, please. While attending your class, I remember you mentioned that you were burnt out early in your career, although you had a great job and were making great money. How do you identify burnout?" Yeah. Attitude. Like if you go into work and you're not really as upbeat as usual, or a little bit grumpy. And if you ever wake up one morning and you're mentally burned out, I want you to call in sick. Okay? You could be mentally sick as well, which I've been in the past, sure. Everyone's had mental health issues. And you can take a mental health day. Because that's another way of being sick. And if you go into work when you're mentally burnt out, you might do something that's a CLM, career limiting move. You might be a little bit grumpy, or, I don't know, just not be yourself. There's no shame in taking at least one day off a year or every 6 months for mental health reasons. I used to do that all the time. When I worked at Goldman Sachs, I would do it, and I'd call in sick, mentally sick, and I'd go watch a movie. Or I'd go to Tavern on the Green in Central Park and have lunch by myself. Yeah. Nothing wrong with it. Yeah. Take one day off a week, though. Always. Okay. And in my MBA program, I actually teach my students how to schedule each day using this, which works in OneNote and many other applications. Yeah. If you want to get something done, give it to a busy person. Yeah. Okay. Hey, Frank, how are you, man? All right. Next up, Manas wrote, if Putin, God forbid, if Putin nukes Ukraine, which he won't obviously because he is smart, what can happen and how will everyone be affected? Yeah, God forbid. As I look back upon the first Cold War, which is when I was a baby, when I grew up in the 70s, 80s in Canada, before the peace dividend in 91, the first Cold War, of course, we were worried about nuclear annihilation. But we always knew that the Russians, or the USSR at that point in time, was very rational. They knew that if they launched a missile, it'd be devastating for them as well. Yeah, unlike, fighting Al-Qaeda or Taliban, whatever it is, which, very irrational. So I don't think it would happen. Putin obviously is threatening it. He's trying to save face because he is not doing as well as he thought in this war. Yeah. And my kids asked me in February when the war first started, they said, Dad, how long is this going to last? Will it be over this year? And I said, no, honey, it's going to be decades. This is the second Cold War. Yeah. That's one of the reasons a lot of people have been investing in defense contractors as well. Yeah. Okay. Okay, next up, Samir wrote, do you prefer different valuation models for different size businesses? Like smaller businesses might be valued differently than larger businesses. Yeah. If a company is so big and it becomes a law of large numbers, it just can't grow anymore, kind of like the U.S. economy is just big. It'll never grow more than mid-single digits, even with easy over-year comps. If a company is too big, then yeah, I'll usually assign a bit of a discount. And if it's over-owned like Apple, like everybody owns Apple shares, which means there aren't that many incremental investors to push it higher. So I will do that. I will make a large company, target price-wise, a little bit less so than a smaller company. Plus, with smaller companies, there might be M&A opportunities as well. Yeah. Okay. All right. Next up, Rita from Melbourne, who's in my platinum class, wrote, "Hi, Chris. The baby blue suit makes you look younger 110%. Thank you, brother. I appreciate that. It means a lot coming from you. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Scott, as well. My face is starting to shine. So for those of you that use Zoom, so I have this great student in my Platinum MBA program named Evelyn. And she said to me, a great Zoom presence can do the same for your career as a beautiful Italian suit. And so when you set up your Zoom presence, you have to use this stuff as well. And I'm going to show, I don't care, I'm going to go off script. My wife bought this brush for me from Sephora. And then you can go to the drugstore and ask somebody there, hey, do you have anything like this that matches my skin? And then what you do, and you'll see I'm starting to shine there. I'm shiny. You go like this to get rid of the shine. And you'll notice that I'm almost out. It's because my nose is so damn big, man. Yeah, it's huge. Yeah. Thanks, Dad. Yeah. Okay. I love you, Dad. Actually, my nose is bigger than my dad's. Dad, if you're watching, I have a perfect nose. I love you. Okay. Okay. Next up, Manos wrote, every YouTuber has criticized Metaverse and Zuck. Literally everyone. Is it because not everyone understands the technology, or is it the same way people underestimated the internet? Yeah, well, first of all, nobody trusts Facebook because of what happened with Cambridge Analytica and the previous election. So if you want to learn more about that, do a search on Sacha Baron Cohen, the Borat guy. Sacha Baron Cohen and the Internet 6. He does a great speech on how certain internet companies are too powerful. Facebook has to be broken up, which is one of the reasons why it renamed itself Meta. And that's why Google renamed themselves Alphabet. Google owns the two biggest search engines in the world, Google and YouTube. And so Google and Facebook, or I should say Alphabet and Meta, both know they're going to be broken up, which is one of the reasons why they rebranded themselves as such. So everybody is against Zuck, right? It's like the New York Yankees too. New York Yankees are a great baseball team, but a lot of people hate them because they're so good. And so Facebook is so dominant globally that 40% of every people on this planet use at least one Facebook app every month. And of course, you've got Insta, WhatsApp, etc. But what Zuck is doing with Meta is brilliant. It's smart. Because the next iteration of the internet, meaning Internet 3.0, is going to be VR, AR based. Nobody knows what it's going to look like yet. And the best technology companies in history, they own the platform, meaning the road, so they can charge the cars. And Web 3.0 will be the next internet platform that really matters. But I think it's going to come many, many years from now. It won't be next year or the year after. There's so much they need to do to fix the quality of facial recognition, etc. Yeah. Plus, I get dizzy when I use that stuff. Yeah. There's a reason why Sony has taken 5.5 years between PlayStation VR 1 and VR 2, which comes out next year. Okay. And as Scott wrote, I love blue, and you know that. Thank you, bud. That's right. All blue. Yeah. Problem is, though, I can't get this tie perfect here. Okay. Okay, Rita from Melbourne wrote, a senior Pfizer executive has admitted under oath that the company never tested their COVID vaccine to see if it prevented transmission. Yeah. And then he wrote, was the Pfizer COVID vaccine tested on stopping the transmission of the virus before it entered the market? Did we know about stopping immunization before it entered the market. I'm not an expert in that area, but thanks for bringing that to my attention. I do know that all these vaccines were rushed to the extent that they didn't get FDA approval even. Usually what happens for these companies that make drugs is there's basically phase 1, 2, and 3 trials, clinical trials. And then once all those get approved, then the government may or may not grant them FDA approval. Yeah, so it was rushed to market, but the alternative is no one knew what was going to happen with COVID. Yeah, and I got both Pfizer shots. And when I got the second Pfizer shot, I was so sick. It was awful, man. Like 5 days, I felt like death. And so I decided not to get the booster. And then this past year in July, I got COVID, and it was brutal, man. And I am getting the booster on Saturday, October 22nd at noon. Walgreens. Yeah. Okay. And then Moss wrote, the VIX is at 34. I'll wait until it gets to 55. Yeah, there's not enough fear out there yet. Yeah. But you can still buy ETFs like VU, or roll up your sleeves and do research on stocks that you think are oversold. Yeah. Okay. And then Scott wrote, can and should we have our family members purchase $10,000 each? Yes, absolutely. But don't be surprised if the rate pulls back by November 1st. So the rate gets reset every 6 months. And the rate right now is 9.62%. And the rate might go down a little bit. Maybe it might have a 6 handle even by November 1st. And the reason is because the way they calculate it, it's kind of convoluted. I don't fully get it. But the way they calculate inflation, at least to value I bonds, is they look at 6-month trailing monthly inflation. Yeah, which has gotten slightly better. Yeah, but I would max out, Scott. But talk to your accountant first. You can gift shares as well in this. And Senate actually is in discussion. The Senate's in discussion right now to increase that amount from 10,000 to 30,000. Yeah, and you do pay federal tax. And there's a penalty if you sell it in less than 1 year. And ideally, you want to own it for more than 5 years. And if you sell it before 5 years is up, you lose 1/4 of interest, which is not the end of the world. Yeah. Okay. And you can't put it into a Roth IRA. All right, next up, Rita wrote, how can you manage volatility in defensive bond portfolios? And where should you look for income generation right now? Yeah. So what you can do when it comes to bond portfolios is you can actually go to PIMCO or to any bond service and look to buy ETFs or maybe mutual funds if the fees aren't too high of diversified AAA corporate bond funds. Yeah, be careful with municipal bonds. I know they're tax-free, but municipal bonds can go belly up. Be careful with that. I would look at ETFs for diversification there. In terms of income generation right now, what you can do is you can look at the dogs of the Dow theory. And what that means is you look at the Dow 30, which is 30 stocks in the Dow Jones Index, and you pick the top 10 that have the top 10 best dividend yields. And you just buy those. Yeah, and just reinvest the dividends, or you can pocket or clip the dividends for cash flow purposes as well, if you want to. Yeah. Okay. And then next up, Manas wrote, what's the difference between Democrats and Republicans? I never get it. Like, both look alike. Do you have a great example? Yeah, where's my Make America Great hat again? I'm totally kidding. I'm kidding. Or am I? No, I'm kidding. I'm a libertarian. By the way, in terms of who do I vote for, Republican or Democrat? So it all depends on who the candidate is. Growing up in Canada in the 80s, I loved Ronald Reagan. Remember that speech? He said, Mr. Gorbachev, tear down that wall. Right? He helped to beat communism along with Lech Walesa and others. So I loved Reagan, and I came to the States and I thought, oh great, I can vote Republican now. And then I couldn't. It all depends on who it is, though. Sometimes I will, sometimes I won't. Yeah. I don't just vote with my wallet. I do have a big heart, and I do care a lot about social justice. But let me explain what that stuff means. So there's a political spectrum. On one side of the spectrum is communism. On the other side, and that's left wing. And on the other side of the spectrum, there's pure capitalism. Pure capitalism. I'm a capitalist, but not like I believe in unemployment insurance. Pure capitalism, way right wing, would not believe in that or any handouts. Okay, so you got left wing and right wing. Right? So you got communism, left, socialism. Okay. Democrats, I'm being careful here. And then on the right, then you have Republicans over here. Okay, and so Republicans believe in lower taxes. Democrats believe in higher taxes. And there are various differences as well, and you have to do your own research on that. But in the United States, they say left-wing is Democrats. But the Democrats are more right-wing than the most right-wing parties in other countries. So it's all relative on this political spectrum. And I think of myself sometimes as more of a libertarian. Yeah. And if my favorite license plate in the world is from the great state of New Hampshire, where it says on the bottom of it, live free or die. I believe in freedom. I despise communism. I believe in freedom of the individual. I hate anything that basically puts a glass ceiling on what any of my students can accomplish in life. I hate that. I hated working in big companies and doing too good of a job that I came across maybe as a threat. I hated that. I know a lot of you feel that way as well. And it's my humble purpose and passion and raison d'être, the reason I do what I do, is to help you get a better job, or better yet, start your own company. I want you to be independent and happy and make your dent in the universe. Yeah. Okay. And by the way, never mention on your LinkedIn profile, if you're a Republican or Democrat, never follow any politician either, please. Same thing on LinkedIn. Why? Because half the people won't like you. I don't know what half that is, but just be careful. Yeah. Okay. All right. Give me 1 second here, guys. Every now and then YouTube jumps on me, and I have to do a search for a word I just saw. I'll search for Republican or Democrat. Give me a second, sorry. For crying out loud. And of course, this is out of batteries. Okay, give me 1 second, guys. Now I have to scroll through and find it. One person just dropped off. I can look at this in real time. Okay, here we go. All right, give me 1 second here. All right. Okay, great. Next up, we got Radu, who is one of my platinum students. He started September 29th, my Friday class. He's from Romania as well. And Radu wrote, hi, Chris. Hi, everyone. Just dropping by to say hi and wish everyone much love and light as I'm biking home in a minute. Oh, very cool. And won't be able to use the phone for safety reasons, of course. It's great to see you. Great to see you. And so Radu is from Romania. And so Romania, and this is for Manas, Romania used to be much more left-wing. Now it's getting closer to the right side. It was run by this prick named Ceausescu, who was assassinated on Christmas Day in 1989, right around the time that communism was failing. Yeah. Okay. And there's a lot of great government incentives, Radu was telling me, right now in Romania, which is a wonderful country. Okay, Manas wrote, you were planning an NFT course with Peyton Kalahea. How much have you progressed? Haven't heard from him in months. Yeah, so I was working on that with Peyton as well as with Trevor Cochran, Scott's son. And so it will come out eventually, but we kind of put it on hold for now. Yeah. But I will be including it in my MBA degree program, that's for sure. Yeah, how to create NFTs, etc. Okay. All right, next up, Giga wrote, I'm about to go to Wharton next year. Congratulations. That's the University of Pennsylvania on the East Coast of the United States. They have a great MBA program. A lot of finance executives, the who's who, come out of that school. Yeah. You wrote, please give me advice as you would your teenage son that's about to go to Wharton. Yeah. So what I told my son, and my son is going to university here in California. What I told him was to find your passion. Find something you enjoy doing, and follow that with all your heart. And so my son, he got into to Berkeley engineering, and he's finding that, I don't know, engineering is okay, but he's a little bit more interested in business and other stuff. So I said, hey man, go for it. If that's what you're passionate about, then switch out of engineering. Do what you're most passionate about. And I told him also to network a lot, especially in the first 2 weeks. The first 2 weeks when you're in a new company or in school, you're the new kid in town. And your best friends are always the ones you make in the first 2 weeks at a new company or the first 2 weeks at a new school. Yeah. So network like crazy. Yeah. Yeah. And tell them to set up a ton of informational meetings as well. A lot of great finance executives came out of Wharton as well. Yeah. Okay. And be careful. If your son is going there, be careful because pretty close to University of Pennsylvania, there's some kind of dangerous areas. Just be careful. It's like Yale as well. And the way Columbia used to be in the Upper West Side-ish. Okay, it's better now. All right. Next up, Secret Tuber wrote, I love you, Chris, from India. Thank you. I love you more. And you wrote, come to India. I will make dosa for you. Thank you. My favorite dosa I ever ate was at Tandoori Grill. No, Punjabi Grill. I'm so sorry. And that was at the Mumbai and the Delhi airports when I was teaching there years ago. Yeah, I loved it. Okay. And then Stephen, who's one of my son's friends, Matthew. Matthew is 17 now. I'm getting older. Just wrote, can you tell Matthew to stop skipping leg day? I will tell him that. And I'm assuming you work out with Matthew as well. Okay, and you can record this clip. Matthew, I want you to stop skipping leg day and listen to Stephen. Okay. That's awesome. All right. Next up, Manas wrote, thank you for everything. My mentor, you're most welcome. Call me Chris, please. You're a Canadian in America. I remember those lyrics from the Sting album. God bless you all forever and ever. Please ask Andrew to have fun in the metaverse as well. I will. He wants to start a company. He's already teaming up with people that work in tech there to try to launch a company. Yeah. He's more of a Steve Jobs, and he found his Wozniak. Yeah. Although his Wozniak is probably Trevor Cochran. Right, Scott? Yeah. All right. And then he wrote, see you in a weekend forever, and thank you for all those wonderful emojis. Love you. Okay. And then Scott wrote, you're killing me. Sorry. Scott, my humor is awful. I'm sorry. But you are paying for dinner next time. Remember, I have alligator hands. Can't get my wallet. Yeah. Okay. Next up, a Secret Tuber wrote, how do you win customers in the food business? I think any business, it's all about customer service. Jeff Bezos said back in the late 90s, and people ridiculed him for this. He said, a company's profitability and customer service are always perfectly aligned in the long run. And I believe that too. A company is only as good as its customer service. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Mike Aziz wrote, thank you, Chris. God bless you. I need to get on Udemy. God bless you more. Good to see you. Okay, moving on to Secret Tuber, who wrote, can you upload a video on how to schedule a day using that method? Yeah, I actually have something you can download right now that will help you and many people on this call to get more done every single day. Here we go. So what I want you to do is this. I'm not asking for email addresses or anything, okay? HarounMBA.com/all lowercase schedule. Why the hell is there a C in schedule? Okay, so schedule, all lowercase. Then you click here to download a daily scheduling document in PowerPoint. And this will work in Google Slides and LibreOffice as well. And so I'll open this up and I'll show you how to use this, okay? It's really, really easy. It's kind of like that version I showed you, but the version of my MBA program is a lot more in depth, okay? So here's what you do, okay? So you print this out or do a digital version, and you leave this by your sink. And you fill this out every single day, and you can customize this yourself, okay? And up here, you put the day number and the date, and then I'll get to why this is here, and you can delete all the stuff you want to, because to each their own. Chacun son goût. Then you write here your to-dos, your goals, etc. And then over here, you schedule each day. You do it the day before. And let me get my face off in the corner. That's what they say in Canada. It's like a hockey thing. Then what you do is, where the hell was I? Here we go. Good. At the end of each day, after you schedule it, so you schedule everything the night before, okay? Then at the end of each day, before you schedule the next day, you score yourself, okay? And it's subjective, but what you can do is you can take off 10% for every meeting you avoided or didn't go to. If you didn't do exercise, take off 10%. For me, if I didn't put God first, this is just me, I take off 20%. If I didn't put family first, if I didn't put customers first, I take off 10%. If I surf the internet too much or spent too much time doing email, I take off grades. If I didn't get 20,000 steps in, etc. If I didn't wash my face twice, that sort of thing. And you put it by your sink and do it always the day before. Please don't do this on weekends though, because I promise you, you will drive yourself cray-cray if you do it. You will burn out. Yeah, just do it during the week. Okay. All right, next up, Sanjay wrote, hey, Chris, hope you're doing well. Likewise. Is the United Kingdom going to or gone into recession? Does this make it easy to get a job in investment banking or M&A? I'm still trying to get into investment banking and M&A. It's really killing. It's rough. It's rough. And of course, I'm thinking of that great TV show Industry. I like season 1 better than season 2. Scott's watching season 2 now. He loves it. So I do think the United Kingdom is going to recession. Yeah. And so in the past 18 months, 250,000 companies in the United Kingdom have gone bankrupt. It's really, really tough. Of course, inflation is terrible there as well. And this new prime minister is certainly not doing a good job. I think she'll last less than a year. Less than 0.1% of the popular vote voted her in. I was a big fan of Boris, especially when he said, stay close to the Americans. Yeah. So what the government has done in the United Kingdom is they realized that a lot of pensions are underfunded or are down a lot, right? And that's a big problem because a lot of people are retiring, and how are they going to live? So what the government did in the United Kingdom was they said, we're going to buy $10,000 worth of bonds from the pension funds to give them more money, kind of like what the United States government did with TARP back in 2008. And instead of putting in $10 billion, the UK government stopped at $1 billion. And they didn't really give a good reason why. And that spooked the capital markets. People are thinking, oh my gosh, is England in financial trouble or not? So things are rough in England right now. I hope things get better. I think England is too big to fail. And they're best friends with America for obvious geopolitical reasons. Yeah. But don't be surprised if debt gets downgraded in England. And by the way, for first world countries, whenever debt gets downgraded, the markets fall a lot, stock market. That's when you buy. And I've looked at the data. If you bought the Canadian markets or the American markets or Japanese markets, the day after debt was downgraded, you usually make money a year later. Yeah. Okay. In terms of, does it make it easy to get a job in investment banking? It's hard, man. No, it's harder. So what these big investment banks do, and banks in general, is they overhire when things are great, and then they overfire when things suck. They cut into muscle, not just fat. So now is a very difficult time to get a job in banking. But you can certainly network a lot using the principles I teach in my MBA degree program, which I promise you will help you get that coveted job in banking. In fact, I have one student that started in January of this year. He has an undergrad and not an MBA, except my MBA. He's halfway through. And he just got a job at Goldman Sachs in New York City in the MBA START program. So in his class are people from Harvard Business School. He's making 175 base. He's doing great. He's good. But he networked a lot. And you have to network a lot as well. Yeah. And I always tell my students, look, I can't, and I say this with love in my heart, I can take you to the water, but I can't force you to drink. You got to practice the stuff that I teach. And I do it with the thousands of people that have graduated from my MBA program, network with them. They all want to help you. Yeah. Okay. Scott wrote, why are you hating on your nose? You have a great nose. Dude, no, man, I'm telling you, my nose sucks because, it takes forever to put this stuff on. It's big. But Scott, I know you like to bike ride. I could probably beat you. You're in better shape than me. I could probably beat you, though, because this nose is aerodynamic. It's really aerodynamic. And I got to say, and I'll call a spade, man. I have gotten more looks in blue. It matches. You'll like this, all blue. Here you go. During COVID, I don't mind wearing this because women check me out more often. But the second I take this off, they're like, oh my God, he's a scud. Yeah. And Sting said, to quote Menosma earlier today, it takes a man to suffer ignorance and smile, be yourself no matter what they say. Yeah. I find humor in everything. Okay, next up, Shwa Melchwa. wrote, I just found your YouTube channel for the first time. Welcome. I hope you join us again, and thank you. Merci. Okay, you made a good choice. You have chosen wisely. All right, moving on to Edmund, who wrote, you deserve so much more views. Thank you for your content you create. Thanks, I appreciate that. Yeah, I will never give in to taking any endorsements, ever, ever, ever. I get offered all the time. I won't do it because you are my customer, my students, not corporations. Yeah. And yes, it has hurt my YouTube channel's growth, but I don't care. Yeah. The second I make this only about the money is the second y'all should bail on me. You are the customer, not corporations. Yeah. And you'll notice that too. If you ever go to video game websites to read a review on a video game, if that video game is made by Microsoft, like Halo version 28, Halo's so overdone. They don't say negative things about it because Microsoft is paying the bills. They're advertisers. That will never happen with me. Yeah. Okay. All right. But this webcast is brought to you by Coca-Cola. Have a Coke and a smile. Yeah. It's not. Okay. All right, next up, Alex P. Keaton wrote, Chris, what are your views on psychedelics? Is there a possibility that psychedelics and virtual technologies combine in the future? Yeah, a lot of my friends are saying, take LOS with us. I won't do that, yeah. Oh, I'm against that sort of thing. Like, I think that marijuana should only been legalized for medicinal purposes. Although I do like what Biden has done in terms of letting people get out of jail who sold weed. And what's crazy is that in the past year, 500,000 Americans have gotten arrested for selling weed. I think for medicinal purposes, it should be allowed. But I don't like it only because for me, when I do, and yes, I have inhaled, when I do it, I feel lazy for a couple of weeks afterwards. It destroys my motivation. So I'm not a fan, but other people like it. Yeah. And a lot of people think that, technologies like the mouse, etc., were created by people that were on LSD when Xerox PARC kind of created it. Yeah. It is kind of psychedelic. Yeah. Okay. And I think it does make music sound a lot better, though. Yeah. It's interesting because the Beatles, the Beatles, this was made when the Beatles were high. Right? This is Sgt. Pepper. In fact, one of the songs here, that's okay. I dropped the record. One of the songs here, and Scott, I know you have like the best audio equipment ever. I don't even have a record player, but there's a song on this album called Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. You've all heard of it. And so that was actually, a lot of people said, Lucy Sky Diamonds. That's LSD. Oh my God, you wrote this album on LSD. And John Lennon said, and he swore to this, God bless him, he passed away. He said his son Julian Lennon, who I met and got drunk with once in Barbados, long story, I'll tell you about in a minute. But he said, my son Julian brought a picture home, and the drawing was Lucy, his buddy Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds. And Julian said that was true, actually, yeah. But I met Julian Lennon when I was in Barbados doing offshore banking in the 90s. And I got hammered with him. It was great. I don't drink anymore, but I don't drink any less. But I got hammered with him, and I said, I'm a big fan of your dad, John Lennon. And he said, I'm not. I was like, oh my God, why? He said, well, I only met him 5 times in my life. And then he went on and on and on. It was fascinating what he was telling me. He said things were so bad for him when he was younger that Paul McCartney, who's like his uncle, Paul McCartney's a sweetheart. He's a wonderful human being. Paul McCartney felt sorry for Julian. He called him Jude, and he wrote a song for him called Hey Jude. Hey Jude, don't make it bad. Take a sad song, make it better. And remember to let her under your heart. And when he said that, it was about Yoko. Let Yoko into your heart. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay, next up, Jesus wrote, hey, Chris, you strongly recommend ETFs, but as European, I'm not allowed to buy U.S. ETFs, but European ETFs, please comment. Yeah, absolutely. So there are certain, you are allowed to. Just for tax reasons, you might not be allowed to. You might not be able to get a tax write-off for it or put it in your retirement account. So certain countries, they allow you to buy a certain percent of your portfolio in foreign stocks, but you have to have a certain percent in domestic stocks. And that's why SAP in Germany, for example, used to trade at a massive premium to Oracle in America, similar companies. but European portfolio managers had to have some exposure to tech companies in Europe. You should be able to get some exposure. I would talk to your accountant first, though. Yeah. You're allowed to. But for tax reasons, meaning in your retirement savings account, maybe you're not allowed to, but you can certainly buy them. Yeah. And you get the nice currency benefit as well. Yeah. Okay. Secret Tuber wrote, I wanted to see what you're wearing below the suit. Is it pants or nothing? Yeah. All right. I might get blocked on YouTube for what I'm about to do, okay? And if you guys have children around, I want you to get rid of them, okay? Just earmuffs or eye muffs. Ready? All right, here we go. All right, just kidding. It's my pants. I have four zippers in my pants on each side. I'm Sporty Spice from the waist down, but I'm Frank Sinatra from the waist up with a prettier nose. Yeah. Okay. And then Karen Beer wrote, thank you, Prof. Chris. You're most welcome. All right, moving on to Samir. Samir wrote, is gross margin the most important factor to consider when buying or starting a new business? Any other factors you would look at? Yeah. Longer term, you look at profitability, but early on, when you're modeling financial statements, I want you to focus just on the income statement and just focus on revenue growth. Okay, just focus on revenue, and then don't just look at gross profit or cost of goods sold, right? Which is sales minus cost of goods sold equals gross profit. Gross margin is sales minus COGS divided by sales. I want you to look at all expense items as well, like sales and marketing, S&M, G&A, as well as R&D. And the rest of it, don't worry about that because you won't be paying taxes for a while. So just look at operating profit. Yeah. And I teach this in a lot more detail in my MBA program. Yeah. But focus mainly on revenue because everything else becomes a percent of revenue anyway. Yeah. Okay. And I'm publishing a book actually with McGraw-Hill next year. They approached me, and I'm going to be teaching finance in a more funner way. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, but there's a lot more factors to look at when starting a company, which I teach in my MBA program in the third semester in the Venture Capital Bootcamp. Total addressable market, yada, lots of stuff. Yeah. Okay. All right, next up, Jason wrote, hey, Chris, I've seen psychiatrists treating patients with heavy dose of medicine to keep them tired, and sadly still, there aren't any medicines for the cure. I'm not a doctor, and I want to help, but I don't know. What would you suggest? Yeah, so first of all, I'm not a doctor. So take my advice with a grain of salt, please. But the way that I get my Prozac, so to speak, for this is I exercise a lot. When I'm depressed, and it happens a bunch, what I do is I exercise. Because, like, after the gym, like, nobody says this. Damn it, I wish I didn't exercise today. Said no one ever. It releases serotonin. So I would try that as your first resort. Exercise, not just like treadmill, whatever, but also like heavier weights, because that will release serotonin as well. But of course, talk to your GP, your doctor first, and then a psychiatrist in more detail. But I really do believe that hardcore exercise can make you incredibly happy. And it's amazing how self-correcting the human body is. Now, the way that I work is I get 20,000 steps every day in this studio. And so I've got the cheapest treadmill ever right here. Let's see if I can turn it on. Yeah. And it goes 6 miles an hour max, which is usually what I walk at, the speed. And I even do it during my meetings, right? I don't walk real fast during meetings, but I'm usually walking, right? So I discovered this. So when I was younger, I remember when I used to study, if I studied for the first hour of every day, that 1 hour was like 10 hours worth of studying at night. And so I thought to myself, how can I replicate that first hour and have the same focus and attention span every hour of every day? And I realized it's by exercising while you work. Because what you're doing is you're treating this right, so this works gooder. Try it, man. Try walking while you work. You can get one of these. You can get a treadmill like the one I have here. It's the cheapest one you can get for under your desk. And you can get one of these desks here that, you know, that you can move up and down, right? So yeah. And if you do this, if you want to count steps, you got to do what I do, which is you wear your Apple Watch in your pocket, so you can actually count steps. That's a little bit too high. There's my messy desk. I got to hide it from you guys. Yeah. Let me go back down to here. Okay. But try it. Try exercising while you work. It helps. No. Okay. I broke one that way too once. It went down too much. Okay, let me turn off this exercising thing here. Okay. All right. Next up, I've got Andras, who wrote here, love from Hungary. Love right back at you. And people say that my last name could be Hungarian. We don't really know, because in Egypt, where my dad was born, your last name is your dad's first name. So it's hard to track where you're from. People say Hungary, maybe. Yeah. Although I did 23andMe, and it said there's a 67% probability that we're Sicilian. Yeah, from south of Italy. And everybody is beating up on this new Mario movie because, you know, the main actor doesn't have an Italian accent. Chris Pratt. I say leave Chris Pratt alone, man. It would be insulting, actually, if he had an Italian accent. I think the only way to do it without pissing off people is to have a famous Italian actor, like a Sophia Loren, but female, but male. Sophia Loren would be a great Princess Peach, too. But have a famous Italian actor who has an accent, speaking English, yeah. But I think the trailer looks dope on a rope. And I'm going to check it out as well. This is my kids, yeah. It's a me, Mario. All right. Next up, Andras wrote, love from Hungary, Mr. Haroun. I'm 19 and I love business and creativity. Often I'm afraid I stop being a dreamer since I get caught up getting money to live a good life. What are your thoughts on that? Yeah. If you love creativity, then I would get into graphic design. You know, like you could start playing around with Photoshop or Canva.com initially. And then you can work on animation type applications as well. You know, start using Final Cut Pro to make videos if you want, if you have a Mac, or Adobe Premiere Pro if you have Windows. You can work on graphics art stuff. And if you want, you can go to Fiverr.com. It's a great company based in Tel Aviv, Fiverr.com. And you can look at gigs that other people are selling for doing creative design stuff. And you start selling on Fiverr as well. And then once you progress and you have more sophisticated stuff in your portfolio, then you can move up to Upwork.com. Yeah. But make sure you enjoy that sort of thing. Okay. Scott wrote, you made my day, week, and month. I missed you, man. I missed you too, brother. I missed you, man. Let's do dinner. Let's do dinner, okay? I will reach out to you for dinner. I'm going to turn my watch around, so next time I look at my watch, I'm like, why is my watch upside down? Oh, yeah, I got to reach out to Scott for dinner. I'll set it up, brother. Good to see you, man. Thank you. Yeah. And thanks for 99 cents. Yeah. But you're still paying for dinner. Just kidding. Well, I will. Okay, next up we got Sarah, who wrote, hello, Chris. First, thank you for all your courses and contributions to the community. You're most welcome, and thank you for being here. Electronics On-Site, who is Eduardo, who's my new platinum student in my MBA class that started Friday, September 29th, said good day. Great to see you too, Eduardo. Hope you're doing well. Andras wrote, in addition, I love what you do, thank you. And I plan to start saving for your program. Thank you, and I appreciate that. You deserve much more attention for being this kind of human and the value you provide. Thank you, and I appreciate it. Thank you. And I'm a very good actor. Yeah. No, God bless you. I do what I love doing. And it's not about the money. Obviously, I have to make some money to be able to build schools and overseas. Oh, we're starting our next school in Kenya early next year. It's a school for women, which I'm doing with one of my great students named Marin Koros. And I'm going to interview her on my weekly webcast in a couple of weeks as well. She has started this incredible company. It's a cosmetics company. Yeah. But thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. Yeah. And then Andras wrote, I hope there will be more reactions to billions. No, thanks for that. I appreciate it. You know what I'm doing actually is I am going to do more. I've had overwhelmingly humbly, that's a Canadian who's about to brag, humbly a lot of success with this video. And so I will do more of them. And so for those of you that don't know what Andras is talking about, if you go to my YouTube channel here, right here, I did something called Wall Street Pro, humbly, reacts to billions. And it's been great. It's been great. So what I'm going to do, and this is just episode 1. So what I'm going to do, Andras, is I'm going to do episode 2, and then 3, and then 4, and see what the reaction is. It was so much fun doing this. Yeah, I enjoyed it. I dressed like Bobby Axelrod's a bit here too, and I just ordered a Metallica shirt as well, which I'll wear for it, and you know why. Yeah. Okay. And Scott, I am getting my hair cut this Saturday at Dee Dee's. Dee Dee is away out in Europe right now, so there's someone else going to fill in. Yeah. Okay. Next up, we got Mabola7, who wrote, "Hello, Prof. Chris. Hope all is well with you and the family. Likewise. You look great with your blue suit. Thank you. What is the difference between calculating savings with future value versus goal seek in Excel? Is there an advantage over the other?" Yeah. So goal seek in Excel, basically, it just solves for X in any equation. So if X plus 1 equals 3, goal seek will kind of solve for X. Future value in Excel basically takes the future value of a currency using a certain interest rate. So if the future value of $1, okay, the future value of $1 using an interest rate of 10%, the future value of $1 in 1 year using 10% is $1.10. And do the opposite for the present value. Yeah. Or you can use the NPV formula. You go equals NPV, open brackets, that sort of thing. And I've got something coming out I want to show you guys in my MBA program. I'm starting to teach program in my MBA program as well. So this is going to come out for my MBA students in January. I'm going to teach you guys, Excel from scratch, right? Every single formula, whatever, different beginner track, genius track, whatever. Graphic design is as well. It's still in beta right now in terms of different palettes to use, the color wheel. And Scott, if you're still on, this is why I've been MIA. I've been working so hard on this stuff here. And I'm going to be teaching you guys also Visual Basic from scratch. And the reason I'm teaching you guys programming, and I'm going to teach Python as well next year to my MBA students. The reason I'm starting with Visual Basic to teach you guys program in Excel is because when you record macros in Excel, what happens is code is created for you. So if I record myself moving the mouse around on the screen, making a cell bold, and I stop recording, the macro creates code for you. And then what happens is you can then manipulate the code. And so I'm using a lot of props as well. I used to be a programmer 8 million years ago when I worked in consulting at Accenture. But I've got a ton of these props here. So when you code in Excel, you create a sub, right? And the code goes in the middle, and then you got the end sub. And all these subs and functions go into a module. And then a module goes into a project. So you can have multiple modules and multiple subs in a project as well. And so I'm going to be teaching programming in a more visual way, and then we'll move on to Python, other programming languages too. And I'm going to teach you object-oriented programming using props as well. And as Scott can attest to, my best friend, I'm a very small man when you meet me in real life. Like Scott is always looking down on me because I'm tiny. But the way to teach, the way to use a programming language to manipulate an object is you go big dot small. So for example, in order to change this eraser from pink into green, you go pencil dot eraser dot color equals green. So that's what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be teaching it in a more visual and a more funner way. Yeah. I'm having a blast doing it too. Okay. All right, next up, I got Mafukafi wrote, that reminds me of Mafuf, great Arabic word. You wrote, what soft skills would you recommend to have strong career growth? Yeah, the ability to have, small talk's important. And you always want to bond before business because relationships are always more important than product knowledge. And so the first 10 minutes of any meeting you have with somebody for the first time, just talk about what you have in common. And if you don't know what you have in common with them, before that meeting, go to their Twitter profile and see who they follow. You know, if they follow baseball, you can talk about baseball. You know, like I can whip up conversation with anybody about any sport because I love sports. You know, if you're from Barcelona, you know, I'll talk about Real Madrid, of course. You know what I'm talking about, yeah. But you can always spark up a conversation about sports or, I don't know, movies or whatever it is, because people usually follow, you know, entertainers on Twitter. Yeah. Yeah. Small talk's important. Yeah. Or if it's a Monday, you can say, how was your weekend? Or if it's a Friday, you say, do you have any weekend plans? That sort of thing. Yeah. But I teach how to network on steroids in my MBA program. Yeah. Because your network is your net worth. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Sarah wrote, I'm interested about the first step for starting a startup after getting an idea. Can you recommend a step-by-step book, guide, or course? Gook is a guide and a book in one. So the only thing I can recommend is my MBA degree program. Because in the third semester, based on my experience starting companies, based on my experience working in venture capital, and based on my experience, you know, investing in my VC firm and Facebook when it was private, I teach you all this stuff. And as part of the Stanford University Graduate School of Business MBA curriculum for several years, I participated as a judge on student business models, and I mentored tons of students in the MBA program there. I've also invested in companies from 500 startups. I partner with Kleiner Perkins on deals, Sequoia, Andreessen Horowitz, etc. Peter Thiel's firm as well. And so all that stuff I teach you in my MBA degree program as part of the Venture Capital Bootcamp, which is in the third semester. You can check it out at harounmba.com. I've got a 30-day, 100% money-back guarantee as well. You've got nothing to lose. You can binge watch the whole thing in 30 days, get your money back as well. My marketing team hates it when I say that. Okay. Next up, Eduardo, who wrote, hey, Chris, is America in a recession? Technically, I don't think so, but it could easily occur. But you got to look at the year-over-year comparisons. So, for example, if a company misses earnings by a mile in their first quarter, then 1 year later, if revenue and earnings grow a little bit, that's not really much to brag about because the year-over-year comps were easy. Yeah. But a recession is technically if we have 2 quarters in a row of negative year-over-year GDP growth. That's a technical definition. Kind of like a bear market technical definition is if the market is down 20% from the peak. And we are in a bear market. And we will be for a while. Okay. Okay, and Schwa wrote, greetings from the Caribbean. And he wrote, thanks, Chris. I hope you're doing well. And I worked in Barbados, and somebody didn't like me very much there because I would only drink Red Stripe, which is Jamaican. Great beer, Stubbies. And I have a lot of trainee friends as well. And so I do like Carob. It is a great beer. Yeah. Screw Corona, man. Corona is basically Carob. It looks the same as well. But Carob tastes better. Yeah. Great to see you. Okay, next up, we got Secret Tuber who wrote, Chris, how do you build self-confidence? Like I'm very insecure about my looks. Yeah, I'm with you. You just got to tell yourself, I don't give a damn what people think of me. And here's an exercise for you and everybody in this call. This is your homework. I want you all to get a piece of paper and a pen. And I want you to do this. I want you to do this 10 times right now. I want you to write down, I don't care what people think about X. And then solve for X. Do it 10 times. I don't care what people think of the way I dress. I don't care what people think of my nose. I don't care what people think of the fact that I'm a 50-year-old man-child and I still play video games. I'm still playing Red Dead Redemption Part 2. It's a masterpiece. I love it. I don't care that people find out that I'm a big fan of Enya. It's great music to study to. It's relaxing. Especially that song, Storms in Africa. I love it. Caribbean Blue. I don't care what people think of my career choice of being a teacher. You know, I still get calls from people little bit less now. People in the venture capital hedge fund industry saying, Chris, are you done with this whole teaching thing? Do you want to come back and work with us? I don't care. I don't care that I look like Sporty Spice from the waist down. I don't care that the Berlin Wall just fell on my mouse and cracked it. It's cracked. I don't know if you can see that. I don't care. I'm just going to be me. That's how you develop super confidence. It really did crack. I got little pieces of glass, but it'll still work. Because I've cracked my other one too. This one here a while ago. I don't care. And if you tell yourself that, you will do better in interviews, you'll do better in dates, you'll do better in all aspects of your life. Okay, and that's something that I pioneered humbly. It's something called the enemy equation. Enemy. You are your own worst enemy. Enemy stands for a networking match equation. I want you guys to stay with me here because I'm really proud of something I want to show you right now. All right, so I'm going to go here to my YouTube channel. Okay, stay with me here, please. And I'm going to search my channel for NME. Actually, I'm going to go down here. I'll probably find it. Hold on one second. Where is it here? Here it is here. I'm going to give you the best dating advice ever. Okay? And stick with me, kids. Students, love you guys. I'll be right back. I'm going to take a very, very quick break, but I want you to watch this because I'm really proud of this this video that I'm about to share with you now. That's me buying time trying to open it up and set it up here. I'll be right back, okay? Stick with me here. Okay, and let me actually make it 1080 so it doesn't slow down my internet access. I'll be right back. Hold on. Here we go. See you in a minute. You are your own worst enemy. If you think that he or she is out of your league, you're so money, you don't even know. So there's this concept I came up with called the networking match equation strategy, or NME. It applies to dating and to networking. And I explain this in more detail. Okay, why my enemy strategy, your own worst enemy, will change your life. But let me give you an example first in dating. Okay, and then we will apply it to networking for a job, or networking for a customer, or networking for any reason, really. Have you ever seen somebody else dating somebody, and the person they're dating is way better looking than they are? Of course you have. And you wonder to yourself, how did this person get that other person to go out with them? You know, how did this guy get that perfect woman to go out with them, or vice versa? She is so gorgeous, smart, outgoing, and personable. But he is not a good-looking guy, and not the smartest guy. How the heck did this guy get in a relationship that doesn't match his looks or intelligence? Now let's bring this equation into balance, okay, the enemy equation. Stick with me here. So he believes in his heart that he's a 10, and she'll believe the same thing. So he's a 1 out of 10, okay? We need 9 things to get him up to a 10 out of 10, okay, to make this equation balanced. This has a lot to do with networking as well, okay? So he's a 1 out of 10. He thinks he is at first. But he's outgoing. Okay, that's another point. Okay, good. So now he's 2 out of 10. He's personable. That's another one. Now he's 3 out of 10. Okay, he deals well with rejection or failure. We're at 4 now. He's a risk taker. That's a 5. He thinks long term, knowing that the pain of not spending the rest of his life with her is way higher than the pain of him getting rejected by her. Okay, now we're at a 6. He asks. That's a big one. He asks. You never get what you want in life. You'll never get a raise, promotion, a date, or anything without asking. Okay, we're at 7. He thinks more with his heart and less with his head. He's passionate. We're at 8 now. He's incredibly unique, interesting, and impressive in his own ways. We're at 10. The equation is now in balance. Wait a minute. He has more positive qualities. But why do we care? I mean, the equation is in balance. He's a 10, she's a 10. Well, that's the problem. We need 5 more, so she thinks that he is way out of her league. Oh yeah, we forgot that he is passionate about everything in life, including his job, because he doesn't have a job, he has a passion. He's now a 15, he's passionate about everything in his life, and she's a 10. So in his mind, he is 50% out of her league. That gives him the confidence to ask her out on a date.
You are your own worst enemy. If you think that he or she is out of your league, not only are you on par with them, you're up here, you're out of their league. The same thing with networking. You can ask anybody you want, not only out on a date, but also for a networking meeting. Why is analyzing love and dating relevant? Well, networking and dating is identical. So if you've ever asked somebody out on a date, you're kind of networking.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for allowing me to take a very quick break. Excellent. Okay. All right. Next up, I have got, we got about 10 minutes left. And if you're in my Silver MBA program, from 10 until 11, we do Zoom. And you'll get that, the link in the first lecture in the MBA curriculum. To learn more about my MBA program, go to harounmba.com, please. I told you it's an infomercial. Yeah, just kidding. All right. All right. Next up, Stephen wrote. Whoa! Give me a sec. What the hell was that?
You already have.
That was, I guess, the next video there. Ooh. All right. So next up, we got Stephen who wrote, "How do we assess the current state of the crypto market?" Yeah. So whenever interest rates rise, all lower class speculative investments go down fast, because when interest rates are high, people just want to buy bonds, keep their money, in the bank, or buy U.S. government bonds, kind of like the I bonds I talked about earlier, where you can make 9.62%. So when rates rise, it makes sense. People want to buy, high yielding instruments that are low risk. And so the crypto market is getting decimated. Nobody even talks about NFTs anymore because of that. But in terms of assessing a cryptocurrency in general, what I've done is in my MBA degree program, because cryptocurrencies are not regulated by governments, they're regulated by the laws of mathematics and scammers. That's right. So before you buy an IPO, you can read the S1 filing IPO document at sec.gov. And this is the S1 filing for Facebook when it went public in the summer of 2012. There's nothing like this for cryptocurrencies, but in my MBA degree program, I created something like this for you to do research on individual cryptos. And you can check it out at harounmba.com. But I do believe that, look, most cryptocurrencies are an absolute scam. 95% of them are. So just be careful. And if you're going to invest in cryptos, I don't want you to have more than 5% of your liquid net portfolio in cryptos. And I don't want any crypto to be more than 0.5% of your portfolio, because most of them are a scam. Yeah. I've done a lot of research on cryptos as well. Okay. I've been investing in cryptos and on the boards of crypto companies since 2013 in the venture capital industry as well. Yeah. Okay. Next up, Gary wrote, "Hey Chris, hey Gary, how are you, man?" Gary's an investment banker. He's in my Platinum MBA degree program. Great guy, incredibly charismatic as well. And it's an honor just to know you, Gary. Thank you. So Gary wrote, "Hi Chris, what is your opinion about David Einhorn's thoughts regarding value investing may never come back?" Yeah. So that's a comment that might have been more relevant last year when growth stocks are doing incredibly well. But I think he's wrong, because every growth stock, eventually you see growth slow and it becomes a value stock just because it can't grow as much. But with value stocks, you usually get a nice juicy dividend yield. And depending on the economic environment, value stocks will outperform growth stocks if the economy is shaky, which is what's happening right now. And so a lot of people are looking at Warren Buffett type stocks to invest in right now with high dividend yields. So value stocks will always be relevant, in my humble opinion, especially in bear markets. They'll outperform. Because portfolio managers at hedge funds, and I've done this too, when the market is not doing that well, what we'll do is we'll buy value investments because they won't go down as much as growth investments will. We'll look to short the growth investments. Yeah. So I think value investments will always be around. Now, just to be completely objective and transparent as always, because transparency builds trust, I am a growth investor, but I do respect value investments and value investors as well. Yeah. Okay. Next up, NRAG wrote, "Dear Chris, is an inverted yield curve a good indicator of a recession?" Yes. So yield curves usually look like this. Okay, this is today, this is the future. Okay, so basically, if rates are here and the future is here, if people expect rates to go up in the future, it means the economy will be better in the future because the government will raise rates. If the opposite is true, which is what we saw in the late 1990s, an inverted yield curve, where we had high rates today and low rates in the future, it means people expect things can't get any better than they are today, and the government's going to have to cut rates in the future. That's what it means. Yeah. And you can always go to treasury.gov to look at the current yield curve. Yeah. It updates daily, every weekday. Okay. Next up, Sanjay wrote, what is the easiest way to make £1 million both online and in person? Be long-term focused and be a contrarian. Have money taken out of every single paycheck if you can do it and put it into your favorite ETFs. Max out your retirement savings program so you don't pay taxes until you retire. And then just rewind today's video to watch the analysis I talked about, where if you put your money into the S&P ETF and you max out your retirement savings program for 20 years, you'll make $1 million. Yeah. But you got to be long-term focused. And you also have to do your own research and don't rely on anybody like me or anybody to tell you what to buy. Because a lot of these people on TV, on CNBC, etc., tell you what to buy. They're great salespeople. That's how they became portfolio managers or CEOs of their companies. CEOs is basically a euphemism for a great salesperson. Always do your own research, always. And think long-term. And be a contrarian. Be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. And be unemotional about stocks and business as well, just like Elon Musk. So Elon Musk is very unemotional. And I've worked for a number of billionaires, several of which are people I think they are borderline Asperger's. I won't say which ones. But they never got too happy and things went well, and vice versa. They're unemotional. And so Elon Musk, for example, talking about being unemotional, Elon Musk bought a ton of shares in Tesla in March of 2020 for next to nothing. Everyone was selling that, but he bought. Then he sold tons of shares in Tesla last fall, about 6 weeks before the market peaked in January 2022. He was just going against the grain and being a contrarian. Be a contrarian and watch your net worth take off. You have to be like that. You got to buy when everyone else is freaking out, when there's blood in the streets, as they say. And the way to know, and it's tough to time, but once a decade or so, the VIX index, and you can search my YouTube channel for VIX, but once a decade, maybe, the VIX is above 70 or 80. And when that happens, there's massive fear and panic. You have to buy no matter what. And you'll be telling yourself at that point in time, Chris, you're crazy and I'm crazy to buy. You have to be crazy. You have to do it. You got to be a contrarian. Because if you buy the same stock that everybody already loves, there aren't that many incremental investors to push the stock higher. And there are no shortcuts. Day trading is not a career. And a lot of people get upset when I say that, but I say it with love in my heart. You can't make money as a day trader over time. Otherwise, you'd be able to identify lots of successful day traders. They don't exist for a reason. It's the long-term investors that do really well. And even the best performing hedge funds, the Tiger Cubs ones, for example, they're long-term focused. They make 3 to 5 year bets, or they try to at least. You have to be long-term focused. If you try to day trade, I promise you'll end badly. Every month has 20 weekdays. That means 20 days the market's open. The fact that stocks go up or down within 20 days is for reasons outside of your control. Like, I don't know, saber rattling between Putin, who's a communist, and Biden, who's obviously not. Or it could be saber rattling between, I don't know, OPEC and first world countries. Or it could be, and that's my alarm telling me I got to wrap up. So the bottom line is that, or a stock could go up or down because a similar company reported crappy or good earnings. Like say you own a semiconductor stock and Intel reports awful earnings and your semiconductor stock gets crushed. You can't control that. You got to be long-term focused. Okay, guys, so I'm going to wrap this up right now. I know there's a ton more questions here. Please either do one of the following things. Save your questions for next week. Or if you're in my Silver MBA program, what you can do is you can log on right now to the Zoom call. I'm going to do just with Silver students. Okay, and you can go to harounmba.com to learn more about my MBA degree programs here. So if you're in my silver program, just go to the very first lecture, okay? And I'll see you in a couple minutes because that has a link to it for the Zoom call. If you're in my gold or platinum classes from over the past couple of years, our weekly Zoom call is 2 hours. It's going to be today at 11:20 my time for 2 hours. And then I've got one-on-one meetings with a bunch of platinum students today as well. And by the way, I just put this up here. I'm starting my next MBA program on January 30th. Okay, it's going to be every Monday and Tuesday for 1 year, starting on January 30th. That's Monday, January 30th. Ends on Tuesday, December 12th, 2023. And it's going to be every Monday and Tuesday from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. Pacific time. So if you're interested, you can check them out here. I've got a money-back guarantee, as you all know. And it's great seeing y'all. God bless y'all. Have a great week. If there's any topics you want me to talk about on future weekly calls, just email them to support@harounventures.com. Thank you, Wendy. Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed weekend. God bless you all. And thank you. And Scott, I don't know if you're still on. I sent you a text regarding dinner tomorrow night. Thanks, guys. Take care.